Screen recipe that I did, I created a background for the Star Space game. In this one I'm going to change it now so that we can actually scroll around this background. Now I'm going to warn you ahead of time that creating the background in this way is going to be inherently slow. The game is not going to run at all quickly because of the size of the bitmap that we're using for the background. So this is really just to show you as a demonstration of how to do it, rather than a way that you should actually do it for making a game. And in a future recipe it's either going to be the next one or the one after that, probably recipe number 9. I'll actually show you the best way of creating a space game using this technique, and it will allow you to have an infinite size space background, and also will run approximately 15 to 20 times faster than this version. But for now I'm just going to show you how to actually add in the ability to scroll around this environment, and not only scroll but also move around a character. So we're going to start by adding a few more global variables. The first one I'm going to do is, because I'm going to have a sense of inertia when it comes to the actual moving around on the screen, I'm actually going to put in some variables that specify exactly how fast I'm currently travelling around the screen, and the maximum speed that I can travel around the screen. I'm also going to list which of the keys that I'm going to move are up, down, left and right. Now if we take a look, at the moment all we do is draw the background image and then paint it onto the screen. So we build up from our small 640 by 480 picture, we build up a large 10 by 10, well it's actually 6400 by 4800 size image. So the next stage is to give us some controls. Now what we're going to use for this are a key down command and a key up command. So we're going to know when we've pressed a key and when we've released it. Then we're going to use a timer to update the screen as we do make changes. So first of all I'm going to find key down, which is here, double click to bring up the right piece of code. Right, so on the form game key down we're now going to add in our controls that we want. So the first thing I'm going to put in is, if the key that's pressed is the escape key, I'm going to close this form. So I'm going to close this window with the game running in it. If the key code is the up key, i.e. they've pressed up on the keyboard, I'm going to set key press 0 to true. That's one of my boolean variables. I'm then going to do the same for down, left and right, and change which item in the index for each of these that it will be. Now I'm going to just take a copy of all of that, because the next thing I'm going to do on my form is on the key up command. This is when it's going to tell me that I've released the key on the keyboard, and what I want to do on those points is tell the computer I'm no longer pressing that key. Because the next thing I'm going to do is add a new control, a timer control, to my form, and this timer is going to be enabled straight away. So I'm going to enable it to true. I'm going to try and run it every 10th of a millisecond, 10 milliseconds. Now as I said before, this code is not very good in terms of speed, so unfortunately this isn't going to run at 10 milliseconds per frame. It's actually going to be a lot slower than that, but we'll give it a try anyway. Now we've already got some global variables such as background offset that we use for the measuring where we are. So the first thing I'm going to do is move us around. So I'm going to set the background offset I'm going to add on whatever our current speed is, speed x. I'm going to do the same with the y coordinate, so we're now being able to move. I then need to check that we don't go off the edges, so if background offset x is less than 0, set it back to 0, and again we're going to do the same thing with y. Now if we go beyond the background height, the height of the image minus the height of our screen, we want to set it to that height. Similarly, we want to do the same thing with the x, but this time instead of height it'll be width, and as it's 640 by 480 it'll be 640 on those. Now we need to actually increment the speed based on what key's being pressed. So if key pressed 2 equals false, this is our slowdown code. What I'm going to do is reduce the speed if no key is being pressed. So we'll start with the down key. This is what key press 2 is. And I need to check to see if I need to increment the speed because it's a negative number, getting it back towards 0, or decrement the speed, and that's what this piece of code does here. So once I've got it for down, I'm going to do the same thing for up, which is key pressed 0, and then if y is less than 0 I'm going to add, if it's greater than minus max speed y I'm going to reduce it. I'm then going to do the same thing for right and left, and of course these right and left will be for x coordinates, so I need to do the same thing with x coordinates. And finally left, which is key press 3. So that's my slowdown if everything is false, and incrementing it, making it work faster. So let's have a quick look at how the code works. Right, the line of code highlighted in red, that sets our current location x and y in our level map. We check through the next piece of code that we're not going off the edges. If we're not pressing a key, we're going to slow ourselves down. If we are pressing a key, we're going to speed it up in that direction. So if I run the game now, I just suddenly thought I don't think I'm in the right project, or I am in the right project, that's okay then. Don't need to watch that, go to start game, the game will load, and sure enough I can now scroll all the way around the map wherever I want to go. Simple as that. It's not very smooth, it's actually very jerky because of going up by 20 pixels at a time. If I let go you get this sort of slowdown effect, this sort of inertia effect that will look really effective when we add another player into the controls. So it'll be a player that moves around the screen, not just scrolling around the screen when we move on to the next part. And that'll be for the next video.